This is me, 10 years ago, graduating from university, with no idea of where I should be going next or what I wanted to even do for work. Now fast forward that to today, where I've been able to work with some of the biggest companies globally in technical strategy, implementation, technical architecture, and now tech sales. I've also been fortunate enough to travel to the States and work across a lot of Europe as well. In this video, I'm going to show you how I went from zero tech experience through to working at the biggest cloud hyperscaler in the world. I'll also share what I learned along the way, why I made the moves I did, and what I think you should do in your tech journey. So leaving uni, I had a lack of direction. I really didn't know what I wanted to do next for work. I was sure that I didn't want to spend all day in my lab and go down the research route. A lot of my friends were applying for finance roles, but that just didn't really inspire me. And I wasn't really keen in going into teaching. Back then, I also didn't know anything about software development, and I certainly didn't know what the cloud was or how it was helping to transform the IT landscape. So I went and did what most broke graduate students do, which is look at the highest paying jobs and work backwards from there. Now, I wasn't qualified for law, I didn't really have an interest in finance, and I knew nothing about oil and gas. And so that ruled out a lot of the top paying jobs. And that was until I came across technology. Now, technology hit a sweet spot for me because it was personally interesting for me. It was something I thought I could be good at, given my sort of technical knowledge from studying physics. And also, it seemed to pay really well. So then I began to apply for a few graduate schemes, and eventually I got offered a role from Accenture. Now, if you're not familiar with Accenture, they're a technical strategy and implementation consultancy which operates around the world. And this means that the projects that they deliver, the central component is revolving around some sort of IT or technology change. Now, the basic business model or how consultancies work is that consultants of varying seniority are staffed onto different projects. So essentially, you're working for Accenture, but you'll be working for another customer. So it's a job within a job. And once that project ends or that job ends, then you need to look for the next one that you're going to be working on. Now, as someone who likes a lot of variety and continuous learning, consulting was a really great option for me. It's very fast-paced. You are constantly learning, and you're always trying to adapt to changing environments and new customers and new challenges. But that itself comes with its own set of challenges. And the first one being is training. So there's no real formal, apart from a couple of weeks at the beginning, there's no real formal training program or graduate program. There are at some companies, but there isn't really one at Accenture. And most of it is just on-the-job learning, doing your own training, your own reading, and then just being surrounded by really smart people who you absorb information from and you can ask questions from and learn from. In terms of work-life balance, it really does depend on the project that you're staffed on. However, the kind of general theme is that there are very high expectations and generally short deadlines. There were a lot of late nights, weekend work, and also long days. But this comes in waves and it doesn't typically last too long. Now, finally, the project that you're on, it can be based away from the city that you're located in. So you could be traveling to a customer site, week in, week out. And whilst you do have some say into the project that you're going to be staffed on, and this say increases the more senior that you get, often you are just staffed on a project because you're the only one that has the skills or expertise, or there isn't anyone to come in and do the work, and then you just got to sort of grit your teeth in and do it. Now, at first, this does sound really glamorous and it sounds great, traveling up and down to meet customers, but soon the reality of waking up early on a Monday morning or even flying out on a Sunday night, living out of a suitcase, eating, restaurant meals 3 or 4 times a week, it loses its appeal very quickly and it can become quite tedious. However, putting some of those initial challenges aside, right, one of the biggest draws of becoming a consultant is how well-rounded it makes your skill set. Now, whilst consultants should be specialized in particular areas, right, just the nature of being a consultant makes you a generalist across a number of different disciplines. So there's a lot of different types of activities that you're expected to do as a consultant, and there's a lot of them, so I'm just going to refer back to my notes. So, you're expected to write documentation, you work closely with your stakeholders, you provide technical and operational guidance, you'll be managing your time between your client and your extracurricular work. You probably will be, as you get more senior, you're analyzing the budget of the project. You'll be leading a team. You'll be mentoring more junior staff. There's just so many different disciplines that come with being a consultant. And so that's why I think it just supercharges you, especially early on in your career, into becoming a generalist that can specialize in, a particular technology or a particular, domain that is really relevant for your customers. Now, developing a network is really important in any career, in any industry, but it's especially important within consulting. And that's because of what I mentioned around you having to find the next project within your career. Generally, there are staffing employees there who help you find the next project that you're going to work on. But what I found, and what worked really well for me, is finding my next project based off of my network. And I generally found the best projects when I just spoke to people I knew and they knew of availability, and then I went ahead and applied for that role. And this is how I actually discovered cloud for the first time. So I was looking for a new project, and somebody approached me saying that they are leading a cloud migration project for an insurance customer, and would I be interested in applying for the role? So I said, yeah, it sounded interesting. And then I went ahead and I interviewed for that position. And that's right. A lot of times, if the people who are running the project, they don't know you, then you will need to re-interview again. And it kind of sounds funny that you interviewed for the main job and now you've got to interview again for the projects, but that's just the way consulting works. Now, from this point on, I started to understand a bit more about how the cloud works, right? How it's changed in the IT landscape, how it's helping customers scale and tackle their biggest business challenges. And it was quite clear from early on that cloud would be a transformational technology within the IT space and across so many different customers across the globe. And this is when I decided that I was going to center my career around cloud and cloud migrations and building customers and companies on the cloud. Now let's fast forward a few years. So I mentioned that network is really important. And here is a great example of how my network came to help me. So I was actually reached out to by a senior member of the cloud transformation team at Deloitte. And they'd heard about me through just mutual connections and the network that I'd built. And they asked if I wanted to come and join their growing cloud engineering, cloud transformation practice. The work sounded a bit more interesting. It was a bit more cloud focused, and also the pay was higher. And at this point, I'd been at Accenture for about 3.5 years. So I decided, personally for me, I was ready for a change, and I wanted to take the plunge and try working, somewhere a bit different, and somewhere that's regarded as one of the big four. So working at Deloitte was a really different experience to working at Accenture. I found that the people the culture was generally more friendly and easygoing. The hierarchy was flatter, so it was a lot easier to access or talk to partners and the leadership team than it was at Accenture. And because the cloud practice was still just starting up and it was growing, it had a lot more of a scrappier feel to it. So it felt more like a startup where there wasn't these great processes currently in place. People were finding their feet. Everyone was kind of doing a bit of everything. And I really enjoyed that. I felt like it definitely leveled up my skill set in getting things started and getting things going. But what I did miss from Accenture was that structure, that deep industry respect for the company and what the company did for its clients and customers. With Accenture, the projects were very, very mature. Some customers had been Accenture had been with some customers for multiple years, working on really, really large scale, multi-million-pound deals with hundreds of people staffing on a project. And that scale and that level of operation, it's really hard to replicate in other companies where the team sizes is just a lot smaller. So that was something I missed. But the culture and the opportunity to try a lot of new different things and work more closely with cloud-focused customers definitely had its upsides when I was at Deloitte. So I stayed at Deloitte for just around 2 years. I worked on 5 different customers, from cloud migration, cloud strategy planning, financial business cases, disaster recovery planning, and like technical implementation. I also worked out in France for helping a customer to kind of organize and make sure that their migrations were running on track for global applications. So there's a really wide variety of types of projects that I did. Typically, the projects lasted between sort of 3 and 6 months-ish, or maybe slightly less. The longest project I was on was about 8 or 9 months, which was my final project before I left Deloitte. Now, as much as I really enjoyed working there was something that was missing for me, and that was the ability to focus solely on a single cloud provider, and that provider for me was AWS, right? Because of that startup mentality that I mentioned, there was no guarantee of the type of cloud provider that you were going to be working on. And I'd done my own research and certifications, and I'd worked a little bit around AWS before. I just liked their innovation. I liked the types of services they were bringing out. I liked the experience of working on the AWS platform. And so that was where I just wanted to go next. I wanted to work solely with AWS. Now, just by chance, my network came to help me again. I bumped into an old colleague that I worked with very briefly back at Accenture, who had now moved over to AWS. I spoke about the type of work I was doing at Deloitte and what I kind of specialized in. And he mentioned that there was an opening in one of the cloud migration teams that he was working alongside, and that he would be happy to refer me. So I took him up on that. And I just want to reiterate the strength of your network and how important it is when you're building your career. Just keep meeting people, keep in touch with people. You never know when they'll come back into your life further down the line. Now, just as a small disclaimer, it doesn't mean you can't get a job without a referral or a network. However, it does help with your credibility and your skill set when there's someone internal to the company already vouching for you to the hiring manager. It does count for a lot. It's not everything, but it can help you significantly land an interview. So I put in my application to AWS. I got an interview. I did the technical phone screen. I did the loop, which, if you're not familiar, is 5 interviews back to back all around the Amazon leadership principles. And I have actually made a video on this, so I'll link that up in either on one of the screens up here or in the description below. So if you're interested in hearing a bit more about that experience and how I prepared for that, then go ahead and check that out. Now, there was a few things that I want to share which helped me get the job and helped me stand out in the interview. And that was my experience working with a broad variety of customers, not just deeply technical or not just business customers, but a good variety of different customers across the board. Also, the ability to continue learning. Cloud and technology is a place where things change so fast. So your willingness to learn is imperative. You really need to show that in your interviews. The other thing was my knowledge of cloud adoption. Now, although I hadn't worked so much with AWS, I understood the process and the challenges that businesses were facing, which made them turn to cloud. What made cloud more attractive than on-premises data centers? How does it help, not from a tech perspective, solely from a tech perspective, but from the business perspective as well? How does it help a business become more competitive in their environment? How does it help them become more profitable, by improving their bottom line? How does the cloud help a customer get their product to their customers faster, reducing time to market? How do they help build up brand and reputational dominance within the market? Things like outages on websites, applications going down, security breaches, all these things impact a customer's reputation. So how does cloud help to mitigate against that? And then finally, it was my style of communication. Because I'd worked a lot with not just technical teams, I'd worked a lot with business stakeholders, with technical stakeholders. I've done leadership reporting. I had worked and directly reported into a C-suite. All these things helped my communication, and that's really important in a customer-facing role, where you often need to explain new technologies, you may need to distill ideas down into their or problems into their most fundamental components, and communication is key and central to that. Now, although I didn't have a really deep technical knowledge around AWS, one thing that's fantastic about the onboarding is you get 3 months solely dedicated to your learning. So you can choose how you spend these 3 months, and it means that, even though I didn't have deep technical knowledge around AWS, I was able to spend those 3 months really building up my skill set and diving deeper into the technology. Now, these first 3 months are very critical when joining AWS because it allows you, or it gives you the chance to network with your peers. It gives you a chance to do certifications to improve your technical knowledge. It also allows you to shadow and reverse shadow customer calls, and it just allows you to complete your onboarding and training where there is a lot of useful information available for you. But as everyone knows, the real learning is when you are face-to-face with customers and you're let loose with helping your own customers. I actually still remember the amount of imposter syndrome I had when I had my first customer meeting and kind of not feeling that I belonged and not feeling that my skill set was ready to start helping customers on AWS. And to be honest, even after 4 years, I still get that because whenever I go to meet a customer, literally anything can come up. So the imposter syndrome is still there. I've just found ways to manage it, and I found ways to utilize the imposter syndrome to build my skills. I also made a video around this as well because it's something that affects so many people. And again, I'll leave a link to that video. So if you're interested in how you can manage your imposter syndrome, then go ahead and check that out. Now, I don't have enough time on this video to summarize what I've done in detail over the last 4 years that I've been at AWS. But what I did want to cover is some of the things that I've done in the 4 years, which have helped me to really progress my career, work successfully towards a promotion, and also have an internal job change. So one of my biggest motivations for joining AWS was to deepen my technical skill set and really understand how AWS as a cloud operates and works and how it helps its customers. So I spent a lot of time doing things like personal projects. I've done workshops. I've shadowed other technical experts. I've done technical deep dives with customers. I've onboarded the technical field communities, done certifications, and of course, a lot of general tech reading to help, address some of the issues that I've had, that my customers have had personally. Now, all of these things over time, they help me to build a much more stronger technical foundation, which in turn has allowed me to help my customers when they have technical problems as well. Now, the other thing I've tried to do, and this is a really, really important part, I've tried to strengthen my essential skills. Now, essential skills are what other people might call soft skills, but there's nothing soft about them. I feel that they are truly essential to every job, and if you can master them, then it makes moving jobs so much easier because these are core skills that allow you to get on with other humans. So, things like presenting, public speaking, communication, writing, time management, teamwork, leadership, all of these things, these are often seen as soft skills and not like the core skills that you need for a job. But they are crucial to your success in your career, and they've been crucial. I've not mastered them, but they've been crucial for me progressing my career over the last 10 years. And I don't think if I hadn't spent this much time investing into those skills, I would be where I am now. So in order to build these skills, I've done a number of things, right? I've done public speaking training. I've worked on making my presentations more engaging and informative for customers. I've built up a strong network that I can call on to help, tackle complex customer challenges. And I've also done courses and trainings on executive level communication. Now, over the last 6 months or so, I've been thinking about what I wanted to do next. I've been a solutions architect for the last 4 years, and I started to ask myself 2 questions. First one is, am I good for this? And the second one is this good for me? So in short, in terms of my career progression, am I good for this role? And do I think that this role is good for me? And the more I thought about that, the quicker I realized that whilst I loved the technical aspects and diving deep with customers into technology and understanding their technical problems, it wasn't really something I wanted to do for the next 5 years. I couldn't see myself doing that in 5 years' time. Do I think I could do it? Probably yes. Could I progress my career and become even more of a technical expert? I think so. But it wasn't really something that excited me. And it wasn't really something that I saw myself doing 5, 10, 15 years down the line. Now, across the time I've been at AWS, I've worked with countless account managers. And the account manager's role is to help their customer grow on AWS. Now, this role is counted as a sales role. And because of that one word, sales, I'd always discounted it. I thought the role was interesting, but I never thought of myself as a salesperson. And so I never really seriously considered going into account management and moving a bit more into the commercial and business side of the cloud business. But actually, the more I looked into it, the more interested I became in the role. And the more I realized that because of my technical and consulting experience, I could potentially be pretty good at this. So, kind of drilling down into or distilling down what an account manager does, right? I'm there to help customers solve business problems with technology. I'm there to help them build their business cases. I'm there to help them connect with the right technical expertise to help them address those business challenges and implement the business cases. I help them to build confidence in the tooling and the support that they're getting from AWS. And so I'm really there as an enabler in helping that customer grow their business through the support of AWS. And when I looked at it like that, it became less salesy and became more consultative, like an advisory role where I'd advise what a customer could do on AWS and then line up all the things that they need to do to help get that done, all whilst growing the AWS revenue, which is what I'm now measured on. So I decided to take the plunge and apply for an AWS account manager role. Now, again, I had to do an internal loop. So this time it's with the hiring manager and 2 other people from the team. So instead of 5 interviews, this time it's 3 interviews. And I think something that stood out and the feedback I got was, again, communication, technical depth, working with a number of different stakeholders, being able to kind of bounce between the technical implications of a decision and how that trickles up or how that feeds up into what that means for the business users. And conversely, taking a business problem and how do we identify what are the technical elements that help address that problem. All of these things really stood out in my interview for the internal transfer. And so I successfully got the job, and I've now been doing this role for 4 months. So I'm really quite early into this role. I'm still finding my feet. I'm still, I've completed my onboarding into the role. And right now, I'm just spending as much time as I can talking to my customers, understanding how their businesses work, understanding the dynamics of their company, understanding, what are their priorities for 2025 and the years ahead, what are the main challenges that they're addressing, and then, what is that support plan that I'm going to put in place to make sure that we can help them grow as effectively and efficiently on AWS. I'm also just trying to find my rhythm and trying to find my structure. Because I now manage a lot of customers, time management, prioritization becomes even more important. So I'm just trying to find my own rhythm in how I structure my week, how I structure my own internal calls and customer calls, and just make sure, I find the process and the style that works for me, but most importantly, allows me to best serve my customers, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's all about giving your customers the help they need. And if you're able to do that, if your end user, your customer, your client, is getting value out of your services and you can show that, then that's you doing a good job. So that's my journey over the last 10 years. I hope that's been useful for you. It's certainly been quite nice to kind of think about where I've come from, how I've progressed and how I've come through the different stages of my career. But if there's 2 things I really would encourage you to take away when either starting in your career or building your career within tech, the first one is those essential skills. Spend time learning how to communicate, spend time learning how to present your ideas how to show the impact of some of your technical ideas, because it's great having really good ideas technically, but if nobody can understand them, or they don't help the business, or they don't align into the overall business strategy, and you can't get buy-in, then really that idea isn't really going to go anywhere, regardless of how good it is. And the second one is networking. As I mentioned through this video multiple times, my network has helped me a lot. And conversely, I've helped other people in my network a lot. So make sure you're building your network. Don't just try and network with really senior people. Network with your peers, help your peers out, because in 5, 10, 15 years time, you don't know where they'll be. You don't know how senior they'll be, or the positions they'll be in. And it might just be that they're a new business contact, or you even go to work for them in their company. So make sure you keep strengthening your network, keep it alive, and just make sure that you're utilizing your network as well. So if you like this type of video, definitely check out the other videos on my channel. I make videos around careers in tech, productivity, and just general lifestyle. And if you do like it, then please consider subscribing to the channel.